"Ma'am, hold on, can you hear me?" David Thompson's determined voice cut through the bustling crowd. Dropping his lunchbox, he knelt beside a middle-aged woman who had just collapsed while crossing the street. She clutched her chest, her face pale and her breathing strained. Most people walked by indifferently, but David couldn't. Quickly checking her pulse and finding that her heart had stopped, David didn't hesitate to begin chest compressions. Each forceful, decisive rhythm carried a fragile hope. He didn't know who the woman in front of him, Eleanor Vance, was, nor did he care about her wealth or power. To David, she was simply a human being in need of rescue. The wail of an ambulance siren cut through the noisy air. The medical team quickly took over, placing Eleanor on a stretcher and moving her into the vehicle. A female paramedic turned to look at David, her eyes filled with gratitude. "You did an excellent job. Thanks to you, we got here just in time," she said appreciatively. David simply offered a tired but sincere smile, quietly picked up his lunchbox, dusted it off, and blended back into the crowd. He did not need recognition or thanks. He was just doing what his late wife, Grace, had always taught him, to help others when they need it most. The alarm blared at 5:30 a.m. David reached out to silence it before it could wake Lily. He sat on the edge of the bed, running a hand through his 34-year-old salt and pepper hair. His body ached from the day's hard work, but when he heard Lily stir, a warm smile spread across his face. Lily was his motivation, all that remained of Grace, the invisible bond between him and his late wife. Lily came out of her room, wearing one of her mother's old nightgowns. With her clear eyes and messy hair, she burrowed into David's arms, hugging his neck tightly. "Daddy," she whispered, "I dreamed of Mommy Grace again. She was making pancakes and told you not to worry so much." A lump formed in David's throat. Even in a dream, Grace was still comforting them. "That sounds just like your mom," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "Come on, let's make scrambled eggs for breakfast." Breakfast was at their small table, full of memories. David watched Lily talk innocently about her plans, her school project, how her teacher praised her reading, and her wish for a pet goldfish on her birthday. After dropping Lily off at school, David headed to the Morrison warehouse. The job wasn't glamorous, but it was steady. He fell into the familiar rhythm of lifting, stacking, and organizing goods. During his lunch break, he sat alone in the break room, eating a peanut butter sandwich and drinking coffee from Grace's old thermos. He listened to Frank and Mike talk about sports and luxurious vacations that he could only dream of. "Are you all right, David?" Frank, an older man, asked. "You look like you're carrying the weight of the world." "I'm fine, Frank. Just the usual worries," David replied with a strained smile. They both knew it was a lie, but neither of them said anything. Sometimes a man's pride is all he has left. Before the end of the shift, Mike, David's supervisor, approached him. "Thompson, we have a double-pay overtime shift this Sunday. Do you want it?" David nodded immediately. "I'll take it. I figured you would. You're one of my most reliable guys. If a better opportunity comes along, let me know. You deserve more than this place," Mike said. His sincere words warmed David's heart. In the hospital room, the steady beeping of the heart monitor filled the silence. Eleanor Vance slowly awoke, her mind still hazy. Her first thought was not of work, but of the strong hands of a strange man pressing on her chest. Dr. Harrison entered, her face serious. "Mrs. Vance, you had a severe heart attack. You only survived because a man performed CPR on you right away." "Who was he?" Eleanor asked, her voice weak. "He was gone before we could get his name," Dr. Harrison said. She then became more stern. "Eleanor, this is a wake-up call. Your non-stop work and lifestyle have pushed you to the brink. If you don't change, you won't survive the next heart attack." Throughout the morning, Eleanor's hospital room was crowded with executives and assistants. They discussed work, but Eleanor listened absently, her mind still consumed by the strange man. She abruptly interrupted the meeting. "We need to find him, the man who saved me. I need to thank him properly." Robert, her trusted assistant, tried to dissuade her. "Ma'am, we can send a generous gift. I'm sure he was just a good Samaritan." Eleanor looked directly at Robert, her gaze as sharp as ever. "No, how many people walked past me? He didn't just save my life, he restored my faith in human kindness. I have to find him." 3 days later, Eleanor's security team found the identity of the mysterious man. Using city surveillance cameras, they identified him as David Thompson, a 34-year-old widowed father who worked at a Morrison warehouse. Robert presented the report, a hint of hesitation on his face. David Thompson. His wife, Grace, passed away from cancer 2 years ago, Robert said. He has an 8-year-old daughter named Lily. His financial records show he is struggling, but he has never been late on any of his payments. Eleanor looked at David's photo. She saw a rugged man, but his eyes radiated kindness. A long dormant emotion welled up inside her. She was reminded of her own father, who had worked tirelessly but never had time for her. The story of a widowed father, doing heavy labor to raise his child yet maintaining his integrity, moved her deeply. "I want to meet him. Arrange it," Eleanor said, her voice resolute. "This isn't about public relations or charity. This is personal. He saved me, and I need to thank him in person." That evening, when Dr. Harrison came to visit, she found Eleanor more energetic than ever. "You're looking much better," Dr. Harrison said. "It's like I have a very important task to complete," Eleanor replied. "Doctor, you said the heart attack was a warning, but what if the warning wasn't just about working less, but about remembering what's truly important? What if he didn't appear just to save me, but to remind me that there are still good people in the world doing great things quietly?" It was well past 6 p.m., and David was preparing dinner while Lily did her math homework at the small table. A sudden knock on the door startled them. He peered through the peephole and saw an elegant woman holding a white envelope. A premonition told him this was the person he had saved. "Can I help you?" David asked through the door. "I am Eleanor Vance. I believe you saved my life last Tuesday afternoon." "I've come to thank you," Eleanor replied. David opened the door. He looked at Eleanor, who seemed much healthier now. He glanced at a curious Lily from the dinner table. "This is Mrs. Vance, the woman I helped the other day," David said to Lily. Lily ran over, her eyes clear and bright. "Are you feeling better?" "Much better, thank you. Your dad is a hero," Eleanor said, her heart melting at the little girl's innocence. David looked embarrassed, his face turning red. "I just did what anyone would do." Eleanor handed David the envelope. "This is for you, but before you open it, I want you to know that finding you has been one of the most important things I've ever done." David took the envelope, his hands trembling slightly. He opened it and read the letter inside. His eyes widened, then narrowed. Inside was a check for $50,000. David gently folded the letter and placed it on the table. "This is a very generous gift," David said, his voice firm, "but I can't accept it." Eleanor had anticipated this. "Mr. Thompson, you saved my life. That's not something that can be repaid with just words." "It can be repaid with words," David insisted. "I didn't help you with any expectation of getting something in return. Taking this money would turn this into a transaction, as if I were paid to care about another person." Eleanor looked around the small apartment, noticing the refrigerator covered with Lily's drawings and the neatness of a family living with limited resources. She knew David was struggling, but his pride was even greater. "Then may I ask you something?" Eleanor said. "Do you mind telling me what you do for a living?" "I work at the Morrison warehouse. It's a steady job with good colleagues," David replied. Eleanor turned to look at Lily. "Lily, do you like school?" "I love school. My teacher says I'm a really good reader. I want to be a doctor when I grow up, to help sick people just like Dad helped you," Lily said innocently, her eyes sparkling with hope. Eleanor felt a jolt. A little girl living in a small apartment with a hard-working father had such a big dream. Lily reminded her of her own childhood dreams. "My mommy Grace wanted to be a nurse, but she got sick and went to heaven," Lily continued. "Dad says she's still helping people, just in a different way." Lily's simplicity and faith touched Eleanor deeply. This was a family that had endured tragedy, but still maintained hope and generosity. "Lily, why don't you go finish your math homework inside?" David said gently. When Lily had left the room, David turned to Eleanor. "I'm sorry for turning this down, but I just can't." "I understand," Eleanor interrupted. "I respect your integrity, but you gave me the most precious gift. For you to allow me to show my gratitude isn't about charity. It's about completing a circle of kindness." David looked at Lily, who was focused on her homework. He thought about the bills, his daughter's dreams, and the struggles he faced. "I need to think about it," David finally said. Eleanor smiled. "That's all I ask. Please, think about it. And thank you, David, for everything." After Eleanor left, David sat in the kitchen, still holding the envelope. He looked at the check, the huge numbers, then at Lily, who was diligently doing her homework. He knew this money would change their lives, providing Lily with a bright future. But it would also compromise the belief he had always held dear, that he saved people out of compassion, not for money. That night, after Lily was fast asleep, David sat alone, looking at a photo of Grace. He whispered, "I'm trying my best, my love. I just hope it's enough." The next day, Eleanor arrived at her office early, her mind still preoccupied with her conversation with David. She understood his resolve and realized that money couldn't repay that kind of kindness. The words of Dr. Harrison, Lily, and David himself had completely changed her perspective. She had been saved not just to continue working, but to live a more meaningful life. Eleanor called Robert into her office. "Cancel the check." "But ma'am, we could." Robert hesitated. "No, Robert, he won't accept it," Eleanor said firmly. "I have a different idea, an offer he can't refuse." Robert looked at Eleanor, noticing the distinct change in her eyes. Eleanor began to lay out her plan: a professional training program, a scholarship fund for Lily, and a respectable, well-paying job for David. "He won't feel like it's a handout. He'll feel like it's an opportunity to grow," Eleanor explained, "and we'll be able to help more people than just him." 3 days later, Eleanor returned, this time carrying a leather briefcase instead of an envelope. She had spent the last few days thinking about David and Lily. The more she learned about their circumstances, the more determined she became to find a way to help without hurting his pride. When David opened the door, Lily appeared, her face lighting up when she recognized Eleanor. Eleanor knelt down to Lily's level. "I brought something for you," she said, handing the little girl a carefully wrapped gift. Lily opened it to find a beautiful hardcover book about marine life. "You said you wanted to help sick people," Eleanor explained. "Marine biologists help sick sea animals. I thought you might like to learn about them." After Lily settled on the sofa with her new book, Eleanor turned to David. "I've thought a lot about our conversation," she said. "You were right. What you did was not a transaction." She opened her briefcase and handed him a document. "I'd like to propose something else." David took the document. His expression changed from weariness to confusion, then to hope. "A job," he said at last. "Not just any job," Eleanor said, her voice carrying weight. "This is a position as a facilities coordinator at Vance Industries. A real job, with responsibilities overseeing everything from maintenance and safety to the operation of our buildings. The salary is $65,000 a year, with health insurance and a retirement plan." David stared at the job description, reading it twice. The salary was more than double his current income. "I don't understand," he said slowly. "What qualifications do I have for this job?" "More than you think," Eleanor replied. "You've worked in warehouses, which means you understand logistics and safety requirements. You're mechanically inclined. I saw it the other day when you fixed Lily's broken bike chain." David's head shot up in surprise. "You saw that?" "I may have driven by once or twice," Eleanor admitted with a slight blush. "I wanted to make sure you and your daughter were okay. More importantly, you have problem-solving skills. You're reliable, and you understand how buildings work. Most importantly, you care about doing things the right way." "But why?" David asked. "There must be hundreds of qualified candidates." "Because," Eleanor said, choosing her words carefully, "I have spent most of my life surrounded by people who have the qualifications on paper, but who lack something essential. You have that something. You have integrity, compassion, and a work ethic that cannot be taught." Lily looked up from her book. "Daddy, what's a facilities coordinator?" "It's someone who manages big buildings," David explained. "They make sure everything works smoothly and is safe for everyone." "Like a superhero for buildings," Lily said excitedly. "That sounds perfect for you, Dad." "You're right," Eleanor smiled. "That's exactly what it is." David placed the document on the table. "This is very generous, but I have to ask, what if I'm not good at it?" "Then we'll figure it out together," Eleanor said simply. "But David, I didn't build a multi-billion-dollar company by making poor decisions about people. I recognize talent when I see it, even if it comes in an unexpected form." David looked between his daughter and Eleanor. He realized something he hadn't noticed before, the loneliness that expensive clothes and success couldn't hide. Eleanor Vance might have been one of the wealthiest women in America, but she was also the woman who had taken time out of her busy schedule to buy a book for a child she barely knew. "What about Lily?" David asked. "My current schedule allows me to pick her up." We have an on-site daycare at the company, Eleanor responded, and the working hours are flexible for parents. You can start at 7 a.m. and leave at 3:30 p.m. if that time works better for your family. The practical benefits of the offer were overwhelming: higher pay, health insurance, a steady schedule, opportunities for advancement, everything David had hoped for but never dared to expect. But a voice in his head, his late wife's voice, cautioned him that things that seem too good to be true often are. "I need time to think about it," he said finally. "Of course," Eleanor said, standing up. "Take all the time you need. But David, this isn't charity, nor is it payment for what you did. This is me recognizing that you are exactly the kind of person I want working for my company. You saving my life just helped me realize that sooner." After Eleanor left, David sat on the sofa with Lily, both of them staring at the job offer on the table. The Vance Industries employee handbook seemed to glow with possibility, representing a world entirely different from their current life. "What do you think, honey?" David asked. "I think Mrs. Eleanor is very kind," Lily said carefully, "and I think Mom would want you to take this job. She always said, good things happen to good people, but sometimes you have to be brave enough to say yes." David hugged his daughter, once again amazed by her wisdom. Perhaps it was time for him to be brave enough to say yes to something good. That night, after Lily was asleep, David sat alone in the small living room, facing the picture of Grace. He whispered, "I'm trying my best, my love. I just hope it's enough." The next morning, David called his boss at the warehouse to give his notice. He spent the entire day researching Vance Industries, and everything he found confirmed what Eleanor had said. That afternoon, he sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee and made his decision. He pulled out his phone, found Eleanor Vance's business card. It was almost 10 p.m., but she had told him to call whenever he decided. "It's all set," he said, his voice full of resolve. "I'd like to accept the position." There was a moment of silence, and when Eleanor responded, he could hear the smile in her voice. "I was hoping you'd say that. You won't regret it." After hanging up, David sat in the quiet apartment, feeling as though he had just stepped off a cliff into thin air. The feeling was both terrifying and exhilarating, and for the first time in 2 years, he felt like he was moving forward instead of just surviving. He looked at Lily's list on the coffee table, where she had written reasons for her dad to take the new job. He added a line of his own at the bottom of the list: "A new beginning." On his first day at Vance Industries, David wore the only tie he owned, the one he had worn to Grace's funeral. Lily had packed his lunch in her Disney princess lunchbox. "Remember, Dad," she said, straightening his tie. "Mrs. Eleanor said, you're a superhero for buildings. That means you have to be brave." The Vance Industries campus was a world away from the old warehouse, and David was ready for this new journey.